the happy class. Thank you for coming. I know it's the last workshop. I've been at so many conferences, and that last workshop is always like, you know, you're like, and it's right before the banquet, you're thinking about your prom dress you're going to put on, you're just like so excited about what's to come, and you just want to get through this hour, right? So we're going to fake it. Mary's going to sit there and smile at me, and I'm just going to keep looking at her. So if you want to sleep on this side, sleepers over here. Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much for coming to this workshop. I really appreciate the chance to tell my story, which is really what we just did in this workshop with Sue Hamilton. She was fantastic. And yeah, she has, if you haven't heard her motorcycle story, I had to go home last year and tell my husband, like, you're never going to believe this. And then I had to tell my daughters. And anyway, so it was really a really cool God story. So our theme for this women's conference is life is good and God is faithful. So I thought we should say that at least 3 times. So, and we can increase the volume each time. So on 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. Life is good and God is faithful. Life is good and God is faithful. Life is good and God is faithful. How many of you believe that? Amen. How many of you have had times in your life where this was difficult? Oh yeah. All of us. Okay, everybody's shaking their head except for the 2 ladies that were sleeping. But, and just, how many of you were in the chapel for the last workshop? So I just caught the very end of it. Very sobering and wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I have my Kleenex box. Where is it? Wendy and Mary know me. This will be in very good use today. But of course, we know we're not alone, but yet we need to be reminded of that over and over and over, right? So we always need to be reminded of that. And I think often of when, you know, think back to when you were a little girl. Well, when you were like 7, like my granddaughter, everything is like this. Grandma, come on, Grandma. Okay, so, you know, when you're 7, remember when we were 7, ladies. Okay, and then, you know, you're like 12, 13, 14, you have all these dreams in your life. You have this bucket list. You don't call it a bucket list when you're 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, but you have these great dreams. You're going to marry this model man, the superstar of the football team, and you're going to be beautiful, and you're going to be the best wife ever, and you're going to just be the best cook, and life's going to be perfect, and all, like they said, all your children are going to be obedient, right? Throughout, you know, we have all these great dreams. Or you're going to be, I was going to be a school superintendent. That's what I was going to be, because dolphin trainer was out, because I didn't live in Florida. So school superintendent, Susan, that did not happen either. But we all have these great dreams in our lives, and we never include dreams like children with drug issues. We never include, certainly, diabetes, mental health, cancer. None of those are ever on our list. And yet we know at our age, really, we know, we're preaching to the choir here probably every time that we're, all of us that are speaking at this age. You know, it's kind of the 18, 17. I get the chance to actually speak at Wendy's, I get to do the Bible time at Wendy's daughter's horse and Bible camps. And I mean, you got a captivated 11-year-old. I mean, you got a lot to say to this 11-year-old. So, but I know that you ladies are, we're all in the same boat floating around together, right? So my question always is, life is good and God is faithful, but do you believe it even through something like cancer? The little C word, not the big C word. The big C can handle the little c, right? This is the workshop. It was not journal making, so you can leave, right, if you're supposed to be in journal making. So here's my crazy family. My nickname is actually Crazy Karen by some people. I'm not sure who gave it to me, but this is us. We have a little maverick who's in the tummy of the girl in the black and white. But I've got my husband up there, poor man. God knew what he was doing with him way up there. He's still with me at 30-some years. And then my oldest daughter, Amber, is over on well, it depends where you are, but she's in the green dress over there. She lives in Grand Forks, North Dakota. She's single, 28 years old, if you know someone. My baby here, she's getting married in 2 weeks. Right there, I get to see her tomorrow morning. They're having a shower for her. Here's my beautiful granddaughter that actually said to me one day, Grandma, my sin nature is so hard today. She's so cute. Here's my little Zeker man, who we just babysat them Wednesday night, so I wasn't able to be here, but he's someone, I told a couple of you this story, but he's riding his bike around the outside of the house, and he comes around, and he's like, because I said, warn me when you're riding your bike, because Grandma's gardening and stuff, and like he's just cruising. He's like, on your left, Grandma, I hate him. And I'm like, Zeke, hold on, what do you mean? Oh, Grandma hates Satan so bad. He's riding his bike around the outside of the house talking about Satan and how much he hates him. He's a cool kid, you guys can call him. And then my daughter-in-law, Nadine, what a blessing she's been to my son. Here's my baby, my preemie baby, Cody. And then don't tell John, that's the love of my life, that little man up there, little Xander man. I love them all, but he is so special. And then my little Maverick's inside that tummy. So I have this beautiful family. We're from the northwest corner of Minnesota. We live up in the New Fulton area, similar to a lot of ladies here. And yeah, I will actually talk about them some more. But one thing that I wanted to share with you guys first, because we know cancer and health issues, infertility, all these things are just awful. They're horrible, horrible things. They can cause a lot of fear. And of course, I love 2 Timothy. I would have to say it is like tied for my favorite book in the Bible, because it is Paul's last words. And that just touches me like, oh, I might cry now, Mary. But like, what would you say? Like, this is it. What do you want to tell people? So anyway, I cry a lot. Just hit me, Michelle. Throw that water bottle at me or something. But here's his words. You guys know this. For thou hast not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love. And this is the one I want you to think about today. A sound mind. To go into things with a sound mind. And oftentimes when we hear something, you get a phone call, your mind is going crazy, and I want to encourage myself and you to enter into these things with a sound mind. Take some time. Step back. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Take some time to be sound. And so that verse has really touched me. And all this is for me. I'll never forget asking a man, the best Sunday school teacher I've ever lived under. He actually lives in Bemidji now, but I had to call him and say, how did you learn so much? And he said, it's all about teaching. He said, I learn from teaching. Every time I'm teaching or talking or doing a Sunday school class, I'm learning. And so I always think I always do these things for myself. So I just wanted to find out, read the room, as that was a good idea, right? Read the room. So I wanted to find out, I won't make you stand, but if you know someone who has had cancer or has cancer, will you raise your hand? And then make sure you guys look around. Okay? If that person or the people you're thinking of are like your best friend or your family, as in mom and dad, children, husband, spouse, or you, so very close family, raise your hand. Oh, Lord, are you seeing this? And if you're not comfortable, that's fine. But if this is you, have you had cancer before? Would you raise your hand? Okay, so we have 4 of us that we know of. So I remember as a kid, I grew up in Forest Lake, Minnesota on a dairy farm. My dad was a teacher, and for some odd reason decided we also needed to buy a dairy farm. So he was up at 3 a.m., of course, milking cows and shooting milk in my mouth. I remember those times. But so I grew up on a dairy farm, and I remember hearing about one guy. Back then small towns were, up here they're small. No, I was in the cities, okay? Forest Lake was a small town, maybe a couple thousand people back then. And I remember a guy getting cancer. I'll never forget, there is a guy in town that has cancer. It's so crazy, can you even believe it? And back then, even today, I think without a sound mind, we still think, you hear the C word and you think it's a death sentence, but back then it almost really was. They caught it very late, but there was one guy. And today, you think about I mean, you guys, the room here, everybody had their hands up. So here's some from the American Cancer Society's website, 2023. Here's some cancer statistics. So I'm sorry, it's small, ladies. In 2023, there will be an estimated in the United States, just about 2 million new cancer cases. 2 million new cases. I should have looked up COVID because I'm wondering why this isn't a big deal. And 609,000 deaths of cancer, okay? Or I would add in from the treatment of cancer as well. I would add in both from my experience. That's 5,365 new diagnosed cases a day. Of course, we know there's probably people who have died. There is that were never diagnosed with cancer, so we know that. And 1,671 deaths in the United States. It is a big deal. It is a very big deal. Every day, 1,600 people are dying from cancer or the treatment of, this is a big deal, and it should be a big deal. It's not right, okay? We've shut down the country for COVID, which we lost many wonderful people. I lost one of the best men, most influential man in my life next to my dad. But this needs to be a bigger deal, I think. So for women, when we say, I remember I used to be the Pampered Chef lady. How many of you have Pampered Chef stuff? You got the food chopper, right? The pizza cutter and all that. Man, that was a great life. I think I sold like $1.4 million. And when I quit, they were like, are you sure you want to be done? I'm like, yeah, I had cancer, so now I'm going to do something else. But I'll never forget this lady standing up there, because in October we always had Help with Cancer Month. Some of you might have a pink lid for your batter bowl, or you have a pink spatula, or you know the cool pink stuff we had. And we would raise money for breast cancer awareness. And I'll never forget this gal standing up on stage at national conference, and she was talking about cancer. And she said, the breast cancer rate, now this was about 25 years ago, now it would have been 30 years ago, she said, is 1 in 10. And she said, I'll never forget her saying, it was like her eyes were looking right at me. And she said, I wonder how many 9 of you I saved. I've never forgotten that. So when I got my call, I was like, she didn't save me. She didn't save me. So that was back then, and that was just breast cancer. This is all cancer. So for women, what do you guys think it is? 1 in how many?
4.
1 in 4. Any other guesses? That's kind of scary, isn't it? 1 in 5. It's actually 1 in about 2.6. So I would say I have about 2 or 3 best friends. I say I kind of have a group of 4, and 3 of us have had cancer. So all 3 of us are living and breathing and loving the Lord today. But how about for men? What do you guys think for men? Think it's more? It's less? 1 in
5.
just cancers. 1 in 5. Somewhere in there. For men,
4.
more.
1 in 2. Wow.
Because they don't diagnose, they won't go in.
Yep, it also has to do with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
So men are 1 in 2. Now try to tell this to my husband, and no, it's never going to be him. It'll be somebody else. It'll be the guy next to him, right? So if you guys think about it, I mean, we've got 3 ladies, 3 ladies, 3 ladies, 3 ladies, and you look at each other and go, wow, it is an epidemic. This is a COVID thing. It is an epidemic in the United States. And why have we not figured out why? Why are we not really dealing with the causes? Why are we focusing on, oh, you have it, now let's do something about it? Why are we not really focusing on, let's not get it? I don't want my little Mariah Jade, who deals with her sin nature on a daily basis, to have cancer. I don't want that young gal in there to have cancer. I don't want that. God hates it. Satan loves cancer. Satan hates you so bad. This is Bible camp stuff with the little kids, but he hates us so bad. Why does he hate us so bad? Because we bear his image. We are made in the image. Was this a workshop, or did you talk about this yesterday? Somebody talked. We are an image bearer, and he can't get him, so he's going to get you. So stop listening to him. And then when he entices you, come on, Mary, say something bad to your husband. Yeah, did you see what he did? And then you do it. And then he says, look what you did, Mary. And then he turns around and he accuses you. and makes you feel like you're not worthy, you're worthless, you sin. He's such a loser. I'm so tired. I'm angry. I told someone that today. Who did I tell? I'm angry at Satan. Leanne, you were in my thing. I'm angry at him. I'm tired of him. Get away from my grandkids. And sometimes I do this. I'll say, get away from me. I do stuff like that and weird. Everybody needs crazy in their life. You just need a little crazy. All right, so again, you guys, I want to go back to not living in a lifestyle of fear, right? So what is cancer? Like, you know, when you get the phone call, you don't do this. I did this. I'll tell you why, because I'm weird. But most people don't even know what it is, let alone, oh, I had cancer. What kind did you have? Well, I don't really know. Okay, we need to know some of these things. So cancer is the rapid replication of a damaged DNA cell. Okay, this is one of the really cool proofs of the Bible, again, going back to what stuff at Horse Camp. But I know this book is true. Oh, because I know it, I feel it in my heart. No, give me some proof. Because it actually, long before our science ever found out that we were made up of invisible things, it talks about that in the Old Testament. I mean, it talks about, it proves, science over and over keeps proving the Bible. Oh, there's more stars. Now we got a better telescope. Now there's more stars. Well, you know, that's nothing new for the Bible, right? Plus prophecy, right? 90% of the prophecy has come true in that Bible. So it's the rapid replication of a damaged DNA cell. And that DNA, or the DNA in there can be damaged from a lot of different reasons. I'll tell you one of them, smoke from Canada. So, and my lungs were burning the other day when I was out with the kids. Smoke from Canada. Bacteria, toxins, fungus, chemicals, baby wipes, you know, anything. And it's those things will damage our DNA cells. And our cells were meant to be born and to live and to die. Cells die and we want them to die. If they don't die, we have a problem because God designed them to die. The average cell lives about 7 to 10 years. Again, this is actually according to Dr. Kevin Connors. Some of you might know him because he's in Minnesota. But our cells are made to die. When they don't die and they have a problem, they're damaged, they replicate fast, very quickly, and suddenly there's a tumor there. Okay, don't avoid tumors. Don't avoid a lump. Okay, we need to actually go in. Don't be fearful. Again, this is probably preaching to men, but if you have a bump, we need to go and get it checked out because the earlier the better, right? We don't want it to become a huge mass. And of course that's a little bit for breast cancer. But so my story, I was diagnosed, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I actually didn't even remember how old I was. I guess I was 47. So that's pretty young, I guess. Like I said, I grew up on a farm, moved up to northern Minnesota, live in a very farm area now. Year after year, the yellow airplane sprays over my house. I had quite low self-esteem. That'll be a book someday. Sue will love that, about my upbringing. But so I was always a girl that was just drenched on the makeup, and you know how some of you don't know that, but some of you do know what I'm talking about, where we struggle a little bit with who we were, even though Christ walked with me from a very young age. I was 5 years old. I don't know how I'd always say, I don't know how a 5-year-old comes to know the Lord, but I've seen it in one of my daughters. I do believe it. I do believe it. To have a childlike faith is so wonderful. Oddly, it's so funny how God works these small details in your life, but I had a teaching degree. I was doing a lot of subbing, had 3 children. My daughter was off to college in Montana. I don't know why I pointed at you, Michelle. You don't live in Montana, but out west. And my son was married, living in Fargo, and I had my baby at home. There was a 6-year gap there. That was another health reason, but there was a 6-year gap. But I actually started working for this crazy little company called Aflac. Thank you. This is where you can quack. Yes, thank you. Started working for this crazy little company called Aflac, and I see God orchestrating these in my life. Like, what in the world? Like, he just blows my mind all the time. So I'm working for Aflac. If you didn't know, Aflac, we sell cancer insurance. So I actually had a lump. So oddly, my lump was here, which is very abnormal. Now, if you ask my husband, he would say it's very normal for me, because that's where I would gob sunscreen day after day, because I used to really burn right here. So I was just, most breast tumors, or back in 2014, were in this area of the breast, kind of under the armpit. So mine was really in an odd area. And I had an appointment, so I started selling Aflac. I got on a cancer plan, okay? So they have cancer insurance, so I needed a cancer plan. So I got on a cancer plan, and I made an appointment in December, so this would have been January 2014, and we had a snowstorm. Well, how could that be in January in northern Minnesota? So we had a snowstorm, so I'm not driving to Grand Forks, which is an hour, and it would probably take me 4 hours, and I'd be in the ditch anyway. So for some reason, I know what reason, I was too busy. I was too busy selling cancer insurance to go get my little thing checked out. So I didn't go until August. So here I am in August, and my friend Brenda, who normally comes here, she could attest to the fact of this. I just felt like, and it was funny because you said this, you said in your session, like, we're never really prepared for these big things. But I felt like God prepared me for my diagnosis. And actually, it was one of my slides, but I deleted that this afternoon because you did mention that. But I felt like God's hand was in really preparing me for this. And because of our childhood, the three of us, my sister and brother and I, we all dealt with pain differently. And mine is humor. You know, funny. I'm just joyful, unless you see me crying. But, you know, that's how I always dealt with difficult situations. So I would go into my friend Brenda's office, who was our church secretary, and be like, oh, my tumor. You know, and she'd be like, stop it. And I'd be like, no, my tumor's hurting today. You know, oddly believing it really was a tumor. And I don't know why I felt like that. But I was too busy to go in. If you've ever seen God's Not Dead 2, it's a great movie. These are great movies where the gal in there has cancer, but she doesn't have time for cancer. I'll never forget watching that movie and going, oh, that was me. She's like, I don't have time for cancer. And I felt that way. But the day I got the phone call, I was on the streets of Cavalier, North Dakota. I was selling cancer insurance to some teachers at the school. I had been in for a biopsy. Actually, I'd been in for a mammogram, which I would not do that again, but that's just something, my own personal thought with the radiation. But went in for a mammogram. They were very quiet. This is always a sign. They were very quiet in the mammogram. And then they took me directly to a biopsy, also not a very good sign. And through this, actually I knew the girl that was doing my mammogram, and I had decided in my mind that, I had decided this way before I was diagnosed, that I was going to use every second, cancer or not, for him, for his glory. And so I had the chance to talk to the gal. She actually was at Newfoundland for a while, about that I had total peace. If it was cancer, no big deal. Don't worry about it, you know. I said, I love the Lord. I'm going to heaven. There's no fear in that. And then during the biopsy, you know, I've had 28 surgeries. So every time people are attending to me, I'm just like, you have to stay here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my Savior, you know. So I had that chance to talk to them, you know. Again, if it's cancer, it's okay. You know, I'm like calming the doctor down. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. And so when she called me, it was lunch break, and I was on the streets of Cavalier, North Dakota, because I had gone to the, you know, thrift store. That's what you should do when you're waiting for the phone call, is go to the thrift store on your lunch break. And so the phone rang. It showed All True Clinic, and I walked outside, and I knew this was the news. And the lady that did the biopsy, the doctor, then she said, you know, I'm really sorry, you know, you have breast cancer, it's malignant, and we need to start treating right away. And I'll never forget that moment, because I felt like this could be another crying moment. Anyway, I felt like it was such an out-of-body experience, because the words that came out of my mouth were, praise the Lord. Those are the words that came out of my mouth. And I had learned that. My sister-in-law struggles with fibromyalgia. She struggles with a lot of different health issues. And she's just, even though she's always in pain, she's always praising the Lord. And I felt like, it was like, wow, praise the Lord. And she said, she's like, you told me you were going to say that. Apparently I told her that during the biopsy. If you call me, I'm going to say praise the Lord. And that's just what happened. And I did have reasons for that. My first reason was what I heard at the end there. It wasn't my daughters. And I wanted it to be me, not my girls. And the second reason was I believed him and his promises. And I knew he was going to do great things. Whether, this was the best testimony I ever had, whether it was being in front of the church in a pretty pink casket, that was the grand prize. Because this is not my home. I got first place, or I got the red ribbon. You know, the other option was I was going to survive. And either way, it was well with my soul. And again, I'm not sure how God did that, but he prepared me for that. But if it would have been one of my girls or one of my grandkids, and I think some of you have been through that, I don't know how, I don't have any answers or explanation, except that he calls us to be faithful, to trust and obey, just for today, make it through today. So my story was not something I would ever have drawn out for my life as a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old or a mom of a little baby. But you'll see it is, next to Christ, the best thing that has happened in my life. And I never understood when people said that. Again, if it was my daughter or my kid, anybody else, that would not have been the case for me. God knows what I can handle. I can handle it on me. But so I will tell you the scariest part for me in this whole journey was telling my daughter, and she was up in college at Arrowhead Bible College in Fishtail, Montana, 12 students, and she brought her 2 horses with. It was wonderful. And that was the most difficult time for me, and telling my parents, because I knew what it would have been like for me. So, and my mom's a worrier. She just worries about everything. So those 2 times were very difficult. Some of you have gotten the phone call from a friend or a daughter, and others of you have had to make that phone call, those of us here. It was very difficult. So I actually had stage 2 breast cancer. I probably would have been stage 1 if I had gone in, you know, right after that snowstorm ended. So I had stage 2 breast cancer, and I had triple positive breast cancer. So this is one thing that I found that kind of, it makes me angry that I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't know anything really, except my best friend had just gone through cancer treatment. And so when I called her, I said, hey, I'm joining your club. And she's like, you're going to be another grandma. I'm like, no, it's the pink club. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Funny thing is, her breast cancer is the exact opposite of mine. She had triple negative breast cancer. I had triple positive. But that's something we need to know, and I've met too many women who had cancer 2 years ago, and they had no idea what type of breast cancer they had. So cancers are very different. Between her and I, exact opposites. She had, at the time, I did choose to do chemo. She also did. Her drugs were very different from mine, totally different. So make sure if that's something that you face, do some research, find out. Ask your doctors, what do I need to know about this cancer? And so mine was triple positive, so I was positive to estrogen. I had estrogen receptors in my cancer cells, positive to HER2, HER2, and positive to progesterone. And my actually is a very, it's the easiest breast cancer to cure through conventional means, because you can just stop the estrogen. So hers at triple negative is much more difficult she also has cancer in her family. Cancer could give a rip if you have it in your family or not anymore. Heart disease, different story. I know this from working for Aflac, right? Heart disease, different story. Cancer, yes, if it is in your family, it can run in your family, but it hits anybody and everybody. Satan's using it like a wildfire. So when I went through the brochure, I went, oh, I have in my description, how did God carry me through? So I'm going to go exactly what, in case you signed up for this, because you were like, oh, look at, she's going to answer the question. Okay, so how did God take me through this time? I actually treated for a year. I had hard chemotherapy drugs for 6 months. I was bald, I lost my hair. I did have a wig. which our insurance company, again, thank you, Father. We had great insurance at the time. They paid for a beautiful wig I got from Fargo. It was just so pretty. I still have it. I have it in case Judy needs to wear it too. She's like, we better keep this cool wig so we can share it, you know. I had 2 lumpectomies, so we tried to take it and from working from Aflac, I knew where to go, and that was the United Breast Center in Minneapolis. So I had a fantastic oncologist. The lady I was with when I got my phone call, my very dear Aflac friend, she had breast cancer, and she had worked with her. So she just pulled her little piece of paper out of her pocket with her phone number, and she said, well, here you go. So, and our oncologist, or our surgeon, has now since retired, but so I went to the United Breast Center, and they were just very, very good there. But I forgot what I was talking about. Anybody remember?
Cancer.
Let's see. I had a year of chemotherapy, because I had positive HER2, I had that for an extra 6 months. So every 3 weeks, I did go into Grand Forks, North Dakota, the infusion center there, and had my chemo, but all my doctoring was in Minneapolis. So that was a blessing. So I was glad to have some pretty good doctors. One thing about chemotherapy, or being anywhere in infusions, or if someone has dialysis or whatever, you sure get to love the people who are there with you. So, and mine was every 3 weeks, so the same people come in for patients in general. If they have chemo every 3 weeks, hey, there's Joe, how you doing today, Joe? And you're just kind of like all around. But the nurses, and they were just wonderful. One thing that I also did on a side note is, and someone told me this, she said, make sure you go a couple days after chemo to the infusion center and get some anti-nausea. And I did do that, and I think that was quite helpful for me. So if someone is interested in treating conventionally, that was a really good thing for me. And I've had the chance to go back and make these gift bags up. And they've allowed me to go in and pray with patients and hand them these cool gift bags and things that help me, and that was just such a blessing to be on the other end of it. But I did have some pretty weird thoughts when I was in there. I didn't know anything really about, I was never a nutrition person. I was an athlete, but I still was not a great eater. My sister was the one, she was a gardener and always fresh fruits and vegetables and everything, whereas, I was the Burger King drive-through, and if I'm drinking, if I tell people I'm drinking tonight and they're like, what? I'm like, bring me a Coke, lady, bring me a Coke. So when I'm drinking, it's a Coke, and but I don't do that anymore. Not often. But so I had never really, I think I wanted to ignore the fact that I felt like I should not be doing these things. And in chemo, they would say, hey, do you want a Coke? And here's your lemon meringue pie. And it was like, I started thinking, I think there's something a little strange about that. I'm not really sure if I should be doing it. I didn't know. I didn't know anything. So and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the brochure of the description, it said, like, how did God carry me through? So this is my favorite verse. It is now my life verse. And it's Psalm 62, 5-8. My favorite verse used to be, so let your light shine before, and don't hide under a peck measure, and that was in high school, but